This is a violin. I'm a cellist, so I really need to play it more like this. Anyway, just a student violin I got on a trade. I thought I'd do a video about this in lieu of experiences with violin customers. I played in an orchestra for a while as a youth. I played cello, and there's a running joke in the orchestra that all violinists are prima donnas. All violists are unloved and have issues, which is largely true. But anyway, I'm making this video because violin customers, when I sell violins, they are perhaps the worst people to have in my house, particularly on things like Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace sales. Why? They come here and they play the things for hours, and then if they don't buy them, you've wasted so much of your time. And they're very, very picky. And sometimes they bring teachers with them who think they know everything, and they don't. And other times you have parents who don't know anything, and they're just so frightened of buying something they know little about. It takes a while to earn their trust, or you don't earn their trust. But here's a very standard student violin, and this is about as low as I'll go for selling violins. The reason why I took it in a trade and I'm going to resell it is it does have a solid spruce top, and it does have a flamed maple back and ribs. So the materials are correct. You can't assume that with all violins that you find online. It's the same in the guitar world. There's an inordinate amount of basswood instruments that are mass-produced that are the wrong wood for bowed strings and even guitars. Some of the all basswood guitars are terrible. And they're sold cheap. You can buy them $49 free shipping on eBay. Or the guitars are $59 or $69 or something like that, and they are awful. Badly lacquered, laminated basswood in most cases. This is at least spruce and maple. So the box on the materials, the materials on the box are the right stuff, and the bridge is maple, and you do have some ebony on this violin, but it's not optimal in terms of tuning, trimming. The fretboard, or the fingerboard as they call it in bowed strings, because there are no frets on it, is not actually ebony, and this is a trick with cheap violins. They use any kind of hardwood, often maple scraps, and then they paint it black. It's called ebonized. It's not ebony. And ebony is the most dense hardwood. It will not warp, or it warps very infrequently. Any kind of lesser hardwood that's put on a violin is liable to warp or change shape. So this is not an optimal fingerboard. The pegs also aren't ebony, so they don't hold, they don't fit as well as nicely shaped and fitted ebony pegs would. So that makes this a very much entry-level student violin that I wouldn't sell much over $100, $150 for something like this. Having said that, you go to a shop and you'll pay double for something like this. The other thing about buying from me is it's set up. It's ready to go. I've set up the action to specs. I've reshaped the bridge. I've done a bit of nut work. The bow's not great, but I put some rosin on it, and it's functional. It probably needs to be replaced, and it works just fine. That probably sounds terrible through your speakers, but it's a functional violin. Here's what happens. Like last night, I had a mother and a girl come over, and I explained it's entry level, it's not a high-end violin, and I answered questions for an hour, went back and forth on it for an hour, and finally I had to tell them, I said, look, don't buy it. Don't buy the violin. You obviously want a $500, $600, $700 violin for $100, and you're just not going to get that with this. She was fighting the friction tuning. I said, if you're worried about the friction tuning, buy a better violin with real ebony pegs and better fine tuners. And so I actually talked her out of buying this and told her to up her budget. I said, you're not going to get a decent violin for $100 and $150. You're just not even from somebody like me that works on them. You need a little bit more for better value and better parts and materials. I said, if you put your budget up to $250, $300, I have a much better violin that has really nice wood, all ebony parts, really top quality Whitner fine tuner tailpiece that I just set up, that I will sell to you for that price, and it'll be what you want it to be. It'll be a sort of intermediate step up student violin, not a beginner violin. And it took me an hour to come to that conclusion, and if I had sold that lady this violin, she'd have been bugging me every day for a week or a month afterwards. I'd know how that goes, and it's no fun. Particularly if you're selling on Facebook or Craigslist, there's not supposed to be any returns or anything like that. So I talked her out of buying this because it was obviously that she wanted a better quality violin for her daughter to play on, and I said, well, you're just going to have to pay a bit more. You're not going to get that for $150. $150 for a violin is dirt. It's nothing. Anything you buy for $150 is going to need work. It's going to have problems. It's not going to be very good. If you want a good entry-level violin, you need to start looking around $300 to $500. That's starting. If you want something even better, then you need to get $700, $800, closer to $1,000. I can make some of these cheap violins play really well, but I can't turn ebonized wood into ebony. It's just not possible unless I spend more on this violin fitting it out than it's worth. And a lot of people don't seem to understand that. They want top quality for so little money, and it's just not feasible. I mean, I was telling her a violin sold, what was it, Guadagnini or a Bergonzi or something like that, like 58 million earlier this year at auction. Violins are expensive. Good violins are expensive. Student violins of good quality and proper materials are expensive. And if you're shopping around for a cheap violin and you only have $100, $150 to spend, this is as good as you're going to get, I promise you. Most Craigslisters are not going to set them up. They're not going to know the materials or the provenance of the violin. And you're going to end up taking this to a shop and then spending another $100, $200 to get it to play. So I just thought I'd put that out there because people seem fairly well educated about guitars and ukuleles, but when it comes to violins and cellos, I find that the entry-level knowledge seems to drop off. So I figured I should start doing a few more videos, particularly videos that I can send to potential customers. Sort of explain this. If you want a good solid wood violin with all the correct parts and materials, good quality fittings, that stays in tune, that's the joinery's good and the fittings are good, you're going to need to start a little bit higher than your average entry-level acoustic guitar price. It's a different animal. It requires more physics to make it to play. It's a little bit more specialized in terms of the mechanics of the instrument. It's more finicky. It has a higher learning curve. There are no frets. You have to learn intonation yourself. So there's more muscular activity that you must put into this thing than you would a guitar. So you're going to need to invest more time. You're going to need to invest a little bit more money in a good starter instrument. So if you're a guitarist thinking about getting one of these, just keep that in mind. You can pick something like this up and it'll be fine to get going, but if you take to it, you're going to want something with all the proper parts and materials that's going to cost a bit more. So hopefully that's helpful to you, and I'll see you next time.